Okay, I'm going to give this another go. I've tried to record this video several times already, to no success because I'm currently battling quite the chest infection. So I can't speak too long without spluttering and coughing my lungs up, but I'm going to give it a go here. Let's talk about the first of the big three fights taking place this weekend on the Day of Reckoning card. I say the big three because they're the three fights at the top of the bill and the three fights that I think most people are interested in more than the others. At least that's how I see it. And that is Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller. Now, the term crossroads fight gets chucked around quite a bit in boxing. Oh, these guys are at a crossroads, they're fighting at a crossroads, blah, 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 blah. But this genuinely gives me crossroads vibes, like a winner stays on, loser leaves town type fight. Of course, Daniel Dubois is coming off of that stoppage loss to Usyk, which was crazy. It only took place at the end of August, and he's fighting already, so it's a very quick turnaround. And of course, Jarrell Miller is really just trying to regain any kind of momentum he can after serving his ban, which, of course, is a bit of an elephant in the room. Many people don't think Jarrell Miller should be fighting. I get it, fair enough. But then there are some people that say, oh, this is a dud fight, it's not going to be good, and the whole card's a dud, and blah, blah, blah. You know damn well, like, you're going to be watching, you're going to be tuning in to see this because it's a good card, and it's a very interesting fight between these two. Um, it's an interesting fight because there are some question marks over both guys. The key questions I'm asking are: can Dubois keep Miller off? If he can't, does he have the heart to weather Miller's onslaught? However, does Miller even have the ability, can he even sustain an attack against a game opponent who, excuse me, at least for some length of time is going to be trying to win himself? We're assuming that Miller isn't blasting a shed load of gear. Um, Obviously, he's probably being tested up to the wazoo, but you know, we're going to base the prediction on the assumption that he is clean. Dubois as a fighter, I've been quite candid regarding my impression of him. I've never really been particularly impressed by Dubois. I see the strengths he does have, but he really is as basic comes. But to some degree, at some level, he can make the basics work. If we look at that Alexander Usyk performance, low blow aside, because I maintain, based on what I saw, that it was a low blow, and of course Dubois quit in the fight, I still was impressed by Dubois. Really, I was impressed by him for the first time in his professional career. I think he showed that even against an opponent in Usyk who is tactically, technically, and athletically superior to him, with his basics, Dubois this is, he fought with a basic strategy, a basic technique, but he did so with intention, with a clear idea of what he wanted to do, and with sharpness because he prepared accordingly. However, Miller's not Alexander Usyk. Now, of course, Alexander Usyk is at the top of the tree at heavyweight. It's between him and Tyson Fury, who's number one. But completely different proposition to Jarrell Miller. You have Alexander Usyk, a small heavyweight, mobile, highly skilled, a real technician and a fantastic athlete. Whereas you have Jarrell Miller, basically fat bastard. He's boxing's very own sumo wrestler, a massive target, an enormous target even, who I think the only real comparison you could make between Miller and Alexander Usyk is that they apply pressure to some degree. Pressure really is Miller's game. Could you imagine him moving around the ring like Alexander Usyk? I think after a fight, the ring would probably be as flat as a pancake. But yeah, Miller is a pressure fighter. He is almost guaranteed to be the aggressor in this fight. And, for a long time, I really liked Miller's style. It was quite absurd to see someone of his size moving the way he did, with the engine, the work rate they had. But obviously, he was blasting an entire pharmacy through his veins. But Miller, I always liked, and I think he's got some serious potential to win this fight. He's not a long range fighter. He's going to try and smother Daniel Dubois and wear him down, and that's really his best bet to win this fight. Dubois, stylistically, is definitely the fighter with a bit more ring coverage, as Dubois would put it, but he's very upright. Dubois is basic, but he's not even fluid with the basics. He still fits into that typical GB amateur mold where everything's very on the center line. There's not much deviation from it with head movement and such. It's more of a kind of static guard, relying on footwork to manage distance, everything behind the 1-2, which can work. It probably take you to the Olympics. It probably get you to a decent level, but in professional boxing, you need a few more wrinkles to your game a lot of the time. And Dubois is a fighter who, as I say, very basic, very upright, not particularly difficult to find. And I think even though Dubois has got some serious firepower at that kind of long range distance, I reckon that Miller might be able to get to him. And I think Miller might be able to get to him from fairly early on in the fight. Miller himself, not the hardest guy to land on. However, I think in the beginning of a fight, he can be decent defensively, but I think his defense becomes a bit more lax as the fight goes on. And people question his punch resistance. Perfectly valid question. I actually think that Miller's got pretty decent punch resistance. And the primary example that comes to mind is the Lucas Browne fight. Now, Browne is, he's an old guy. He's washed up. And even when he was in his prime, he wasn't particularly good. But he always got credit for being a puncher. And a serious puncher he is, Lucas Browne. And he hit Jarrell Miller with his Sunday best punch several times. And Miller didn't really look that hurt to me. I think on some occasions he was just about buzzed, but he shook it off very quickly. And, Daniel Dubois is definitely a superior fighter to Lucas Browne. But is he a harder puncher? I reckon they're probably in a similar ballpark. Lucas Browne, legit puncher. If you doubt that, just ask Junior Farr, who's also fighting on the card. He got completely splattered by Lucas Browne. But Miller, no such problem. And he got hit flush with some big right hands from Lucas Browne. So I tend to believe that he could probably take the power of Daniel Dubois. And if he can, I think that spells trouble for Dubois. And because I have this hunch that Miller probably can take his power, I assume that he'll be able to close the distance from quite early on, as I say. And maybe Dubois can stifle it at first and hold on a bit. But I think Miller, he will just be able to use his physicality. Not just like a bull in a china shop, but intelligently, Miller, he's got some wrinkles to his game. He knows how to hold an opponent in place, using a bit of stiff arming, using the shoulder, a bit of a bump and shoot, that kind of thing. And he does tighten his shots up quite well. He's not a big puncher by any stretch, and I think we also saw that in the Lucas Browne fight, where Lucas Browne himself got hit with some, clean shots from Miller. But, it took a while for Miller to grind him down. Miller's not a big puncher, but he erodes away at you with a high volume of accurate and quite creative shots as well. As I say, he shortens up his shots well. He knows how to mix them up. And he's fairly accurate. There's a good degree of precision. And I think, you don't really need to hurt Daniel Dubois. I don't think he was overly hurt against Usyk. He was buzzed a little bit. But I think it was the pressure and it was the accuracy and the volume of shots that got to him against Usyk. And I suspect Miller will be able to do the same and get him to check out mentally. Because once a quitter, always a quitter. I know some people will say that Dubois seems like he's got a new lease on life because he's just grinning like a Cheshire cat in every interview because he's got this new girlfriend and he's probably, he's probably been welcomed to manhood since having this new girlfriend. But maybe Dubois comes out and he's got no pressure on him, like nothing to lose. But I think stylistically, Miller will just be able to dog Dubois out of this fight. Not just dog him out, but also just be the better fighter technically, you know, and just be landing the better offense. Miller can't afford to get tattooed by big Daniel Dubois shots, but I don't think he will. I think he might take some, and if he feels the power, he'll probably just maintain his defense a bit. Miller's no Pernell Whitaker, but he can slip and slide and roll with shots, and he works his offense quite nicely off of that. So I see Miller as being the better fighter. We don't necessarily know how much he's got left, assuming that he's a clean athlete now, but if he's got even a fraction of what he did when he was, you know, juiced up to the gills on the multivitamins, I suspect that is probably still enough to beat Daniel Dubois. And I see him overwhelming Dubois 6 or 7 rounds. I think he's going to put the pressure on. I don't think Daniel Dubois is really going to be that hurt, but I think he's just going to be hit so often that the corner probably chuck in the towel and force a stoppage. So, yeah, just my opinion. I'm going to try and edit out all the coughing fits I have, but this is, the first prediction fight for the weekend. I'll be getting to the next 2 in short order, but leave your thoughts down below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.